Hello guys, now we're gonna talk about biggest things to avoid for the body types. We're gonna talk about kibbe body types. So if you're new, I'm gonna leave the link on my kibbe playlist down below. For some of you who didn't determine their body type yet, this video is another video that might help you to understand this, because today I'm gonna talk about the certain combinations of things that just don't work for this particular type. That would be just something the most wrong for the type. And there's no basically such item, like a clothes item or accessory, something like this, that would be wrong for this or that type. It's mostly about how you build your outfit. And the outfit consists of many elements, right? It can be top and the bottom, or the dress and then some layers of the clothes and accessories and shoes and hats or glasses. Of course, makeup and hair is a very important thing. There are just several things for each body type that are just so far away from their vibe, from their bone structure, that if we combine them all, several of them together, that can look slightly funny on that particular type. It will just look very foreign on them, something that doesn't belong to them, something that is not theirs, something clownish even sometimes, or sometimes as if they're trying so hard, or as if they're not trying hard enough. You know what I mean? It's just for each type is different. So maybe you already know things like that just don't work for you for sure. And maybe this is another way how you can understand, how you can determine your type. Maybe it will be like a hint for you. And another little disclaimer, all these types is not very important thing. If you found your style, if you're enjoying yourself, and if you're happy, this is the goal. If you're unhappy and still searching, that might help you and that might be just interesting for you. And another thing to know, that we are not trying to break the rules. First, we try to know the rules. That's our first step. And then after you know the rules, you will be able to break them as much as you can. There's a big difference if you're aware about the rules that you're breaking or you're not aware. For example, Olsen sisters, they are in the fashion industry for their whole life. They love dressing up very strange and very oversized coats, and very oversized, and something that obviously doesn't look good on that particular type, but they're already above it. They're going for a specific style. They're breaking those rules because they want to break those rules is specifically this way. They know what they're doing. They know the effect they're presenting. They're tiny, they're very skinny, but the clothes they're wearing is normally the clothes for bigger women. So if we look at their body type, probably that would be a big no-no for their type. But as I said, they are already above that. They know the fashion rules and they are breaking them, and they know exactly what they're doing. And the first body type we're gonna discuss is dramatic. And dramatic women, they're pretty angular, sharp, and elongated. So if they're building their outfit consisting only of very soft, rounded, small, weightless, light details, that's gonna make them look slightly funny and slightly stronger than they basically are. It will make them look more angular, more elongated, and more sharp than they are. If you remember FAYE DUNAWAY, like recently I made this style review of FAYE DUNAWAY. I have another series of style reviews of all those body types. So she's a dramatic type, and I showed you these pictures. So she's elongated, so short shape, very gentle color, very gentle fabric, small frills, like small details, like small frills, small drapes, not exact shape, not geometric, not tailored, something that doesn't keep its shape, that is just lying on her body, accommodating every curve that she has on her body, including that very, very rounded hairstyle with very big volume and very stiff curls. All that is just somewhere on the opposite scale. If she would correct at least one of the elements, that would balance it all. For example, if she would wear this dress long, or this dress in a darker color, that would create a contrast with her skin, and that would kind of visually make the shape of it a little bit more compact and not that blended, like watercolored, you know? So another thing, or her hair would not be so curly. It will be probably a little bit more geometric, you know what I mean? So we are mostly talking about building an outfit of all the opposites. But knowing this, you will be able to balance things. And also something little girlish. That also, as a contrast, looks very opposite to their bone structure. They look twice more long, twice more powerful and strong, and angular than they actually are. Now we're gonna talk about soft dramatic. Soft dramatic woman also looks elongated and she's lush and voluptuous. So for women like this, again, something very short can look opposite. But not always, it depends on the balance, remember? So for these women, the wrongest outfits would be consistent of very short pieces, very bulky and stiff fabrics at the same time, and very bulky at the waist area, something very unconstructed, having very severe geometric pieces on it, wide in waist area. That is important because these women look amazing with waist emphasis. So at least when they're adding that, that already is looking everything like closer to their vibe. But it's like short shapes, wide at the waist, bulky, too little hair or untidy hair. All that creates very untidy, very bulky look for them. They might feel like they look very heavy and not groomed, you know, sometimes. Also, if they're experimenting with smaller shapes in their hair, like pixie cuts, like boyish, when they're trying on themselves boyish shapes. Stiff shapes, small geometrics, short pieces, and pixie haircut, for example, combined with all that. So a woman with large body, little girlish or little boyish lines sometimes can just look opposite on their body. Now we're gonna talk about romantics. Romantics are also lush and voluptuous. They have a lot of softness on their flesh. They don't look elongated and their bone structure is pretty delicate if we compare them to dramatics or soft dramatics. Probably the worst things for romantics would be severe geometry, very big, huge, bulky, very wide, something very wide, no waist emphasis, maybe also something wide and long because they're not tall, they're not elongated. So the more to the width they go, the shorter they become. If you remember my style review of Elizabeth Taylor, she's a romantic type. So every time they go a little bit wider than they can, so they start looking even smaller and much wider than they are. And also as far as their bone structure is pretty delicate and they look pretty smallish and very gentle, all those aggressive things and huge things, very contrasted, very geometric, very sharp and very exaggerated in shape, can actually make them look not all together. Theatrical romantic, also like a romantic but with slightly sharper bones. So they're normally also small, they're not large, they look very delicate, and for their bone structure, again, something that would be very severe geometry, large geometry, unconstructed, very wide at the waist, too oversized, too bulky, too exaggerated, and very untidy hair, for example. All that can make them look slightly untidy, and they need slightly more glamorous. Classic. Classic is moderate in everything. They don't look lush and voluptuous, but at the same time they don't look very dry and very angular and sharp. Biggest things, combinations of things to avoid for classics would be too bright makeup along with tousled hair, too noisy everything, like too many accessories, too bright unnatural colors. Even when classic woman has her coloration pretty contrasted, she still looks better with those more expensive, more classic, if we can say, some colors rather than with those very bright colors. For some reason they make them look cheaper. Like for other types, it's not the case. Sometimes it's opposite. So they need those bright things. It elevates their look. But for classics, for some reason, that's not working for them. It's just too much for them, too noisy, too interesting, for example, or I don't know, lip injections, cheek injections. I don't think that it looks good on any body type, but for classic specifically, it's so visible, it's so seen. Soft classic, again, very close to classic, too much of everything, loads of colors for their makeup, of their hair, like stripes on the hair, untidiness, also severe geometry and no waist emphasis, like bulkiness around the waist especially, also too short shapes and too wide shapes, along with a lot of bright pieces or over accessories. Also, that can make their look slightly noisy, or like ripped jeans, for example. All that is pulling them away from that chic. Dramatic classic, also very close to classic because again, they're pretty moderate. They're not looking very lush and voluptuous, but they still have a little bit more drama than classics. So for them, something that would be very pale watercolor blends on their face, for example, like frosty colors with a lot of shimmers and too gentle something. Super big shapes or super big drapes, something unconstructed and too soft, for example, bigger shapes. Also, it slightly interferes with their vibe itself. Untidy hair. Every time they're trying to soften something, I don't know, soften their hair color just to make themselves look more like naturals rather than dramatic classics, that also is a voice for them. Also when they're wearing something too girly outfits everywhere, too girly hair, too girly short dresses like pink with a lot of frills and stuff like that. So that looks slightly weird on them because they have totally different vibe, and at the same time their bone structure is more dramatic. So as a contrast, they look more angular, more heavy. Also, probably one more thing to avoid to this combination would be inexpensive looking jewelry. And when I say that, I don't mean that everybody has to avoid it. I don't think so, because I think some women look very cool and very expensive with plastic earrings, for example. That's a character. We should not forget about the character. You can wear whatever you want in the combination as you want, but it should be right combination, or it can be wrong combination. So this is what we're looking at. So dramatic classics along with classics and soft classics, they look better with more expensive looking jewelry, not with that lightweight plastic and very bright, I don't know, hanging earrings like pink or bright yellow plastic hula hoops, neon colors or something like this. Naturals also can be moderate in size, can look moderate, and they are slightly on the more muscular side. They have slightly wider bone structure, more blunt bone structure. So for them, probably the most thing to avoid would be overly glamorous look in that traditional glamour sense, meaning all of the items of the look, all of the aspects of the look are very, very glamorized. So every time there is just a lot going on, very sleek, shiny hair, very shiny, sleek and thin makeup, very sleek dress, bodycon when everything is very shiny and very short, and the fabric is very thin, and then they have pumps with very, very thin high heels, very thin everything. As a contrast, their bone structure looks wider. They look more squarish and more angular with that. It's not the list of things that you have always to avoid. It's just all of these things, if they are all presenting in one outfit, that can look slightly alien on you, slightly not for you. You can take one or two of these things and they will look amazing if you add something that belongs to you. And that will balance out the whole situation. Also, when naturals are trying too small shapes and too straight shapes, like for boys, very short and geometric pixie cut, very short and geometric and small, and very tailored silhouettes, very sharp. So again, as a contrast, that makes their bone structure look broader. They feel like they look more angular. It makes them look very stiff and very squarish. Soft naturals. Probably the worst combination would be having that, again, boyish punk flamboyant style with lots of color blocks, bright geometry, small shapes, and very tailored and stiff without any waist emphasis. Probably that would be the furthest from them. Soft naturals are softer, so they have wider bones, they look slightly heavy sometimes, and they can look a little bit voluptuous. They can have a little bit voluptuous figure sometimes, not always, but they have squarish bones, blunt bones. So in those tiny and aggressive small geometry and shapes, their body can look slightly bigger. They can feel slightly awkward. They feel like that they don't have enough femininity added in there. Also too glamorized and too perfect. Everything very, very precise, bright, unnatural hair color, like bleached white to the roots or super black if you don't have black hair yourself. You know, all those things sometimes can make them look slightly unnatural. They might feel that they don't look classy enough. Flamboyant natural. These ladies, they do look elongated, strong, and they have normally stronger shoulder area. So for them, tiny shapes, overly boyish. Again, very sleek, very shiny, small and tiny and sharp, boyish haircut, boyish vibe. All that can look not very elegant on them. And along with that, something overly feminine, overly light, very gentle, loads of frills, loads of transparent see-through materials, very rounded everything. That also as a contrast is just too lightweight visually, so as a contrast that they can look slightly more heavy. Gamine. They are smallish and they have pretty straight, pretty sharp bones, pretty narrow shoulders. They look small. For them, on contrary, every time they're adding to their look a lot of womanly elements. Huge hair volume, long hair, something long here, big drapes, same color head to toe, elongated décolleté line. Everything is very hanging on them. Hanging sleeves or puffy sleeves, wide at the same time, very oversized, very soft. And along with that, all that traditional glamour added in there, all that looks very far from their look. They look like little girls in mama's dresses or with mama's hair because they're tiny, they look small. So with their bone structure, that looks just too much. It's just visually makes them look much smaller than they actually are. So it does interfere into their proportions, first of all, and also the rest to their vibe. You know, that too womanized. There are still some examples when people are breaking the rules, but as I said in the beginning of this video, these people know all the possible fashion rules. They are in the fashion, like Miroslava Duma, she is gamine body type. So she's tiny, but she is breaking those rules sometimes, but not altogether. If she's wearing an oversized and very wide and bulky coat with long hair, then she's adding something intricate in there, something interesting, something sharp, small, some color blocks, or I don't know, it keeps it keeps its shape. The coat keeps its shape, and she's very aware about that oversize that she's going for. But as I said at the beginning, this is the next step. You can break the rules, but you know, you're aware about what you're gonna have in the end. So that's our next step. Soft gamines. Close to the gamines, but they just have some extra softness, some flesh on top. So for soft gamines, they also look pretty tiny, short. Sometimes they look strange with vertical line, long vertical line from head to toe, same color, and very long dresses or something. Especially when it's combined, again, as I said, for gamines, it's very similar to soft gamines too. Bulky, big, huge back-combed hair, long hair or long sleek hair. All that glamour in a traditional understanding of glamour. Everything is perfectly made without anything added in there, anything wrong. Big beads, for example, instead of those classic and tiny earrings, you know? You can actually watch this style review about Bette Davis. She's a soft gamine, so I'm explaining there. We're just looking at so many examples of how soft gamines are dressed and what this or that suit or outfit is doing to her. So yeah, for soft gamines, probably that would be overly feminized glamour, like glamour of a big woman. And actually Olsen sisters are also soft gamines, so you can see the example how that looks like. But again, as I said at the beginning, they know what they're doing, so I don't want to look at them as an example of how not to do. If we talk about flamboyant gamines, smallish type, they're broadly angular, they can have some defined musculature in them, they are slightly squarish looking, and for them, again, very close to what I already said about gamines and soft gamines. So that traditional glam a la Sophia Loren, huge volumes, huge curls, huge waves, along with very feminine outfits, big drapes, long dresses, very soft, or everything very classic without adding some weird things to that, or some interesting jewelry or hairband or hairband or something there that would just cut that glamorous line. Just cut it, just give us a hint. Because when they're wearing all that glamour on them, they might feel like they are slightly angular, more angular than they are. Subscribe on my Pinterest for 13 boards as an inspiration for the body types. Also, you can subscribe on my Instagram. All the links I'm gonna leave down below. Also, you can become my sponsor or subscribe on my Patreon for some exclusive videos, some early access to these videos, and just if you want to support me and my channel. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.